We welcome you for the today's program. This program will be addressing you on a new treaty called BBNJ, Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction. You may ask or you may think why we need to discuss this particular topic, particularly when we are discussing about sea mining or ocean mining, Convention on the Law of the Sea, Arctic, Antarctic, all these things. To put it differently, all the expressions, whatever you call it, law of the sea, ocean bed, subsoil, continental shelf, all these things fall under one terminology called beyond national jurisdiction. So, you may think whether this biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction covers all these things. To some extent, answer is yes. To some extent, answer is no. So, why we need to discuss this? What is this background of this particular treaty? Is there any necessity to have such a separate treaty? All these things will be discussed. We all feel that this biodiversity, particularly the conservation of biodiversity, utilization of genetic resources in a sustainable manner, access and benefit sharing, people call it fair and equitable sharing of benefits, arising out of the utilization of genetic resources and traditional knowledge. All these things are very new, modern concept, Western concept. Even in the British Raj, in the forest law, we have such a concept. That concept is known as concessions and privileges to the forest dwellers. So, is it applicable only in the land? Is it only in the territorial restrictions? This is what in the beginning it has been understood. So, it has taken a long way to reach out an international treaty known as CBD in the year 1992, and after CBD has come into force, almost 1 decade later in the year 2001, we got one more sister treaty called International Treaty of Plant and Genetic Resources, ITPGR. This is relating to only food and agriculture, and there is also a benefit sharing mechanism has been worked out. This is called specialized benefit sharing mechanism is concerned. Then after that, after a long years negotiations in the year 2010 in Nagoya at Japan, the international community adopted a protocol for access and benefit sharing in the legally binding format. This is addressing only within territorial restrictions. There are certain mechanisms for transboundary cooperation, inter-country cooperation, regional cooperation, even for international cooperation, but largely it is understood this mechanism is suited only territorial biodiversity. To put it differently, nations' rights over biodiversity, sovereignty over biodiversity has been clearly recognized. An incentivization mechanism has been created successfully for the preservation and conservation of biodiversity, sustainable use of that, and just to incentivize that, the fair and equitable sharing, benefit sharing mechanism, what is known as ABS, access and benefit sharing mechanism, has been worked out. The CBD secretariat is located in Canada. The term natural resources is a wider one. All natural resources need not to be biological resources, but certainly all biological resources happen to be natural resources. There is a clear-cut distinction. What is biological resources has been defined under the CBD, and we have national legislations also. India is a pioneer in implementing this biodiversity legislation, one among the few countries, though it has taken a long time. CBD has been done in 1992, we have enforced this act in 2002, the rules have been framed in 2003, came into operation 2004. The Western bloc is divided on this particular issues. One more treaty called TRIPS Agreement of WTO has come into operation in the year 1995 onwards actually. Now, there is a sharp conflict between TRIPS and CBD. This dichotomy continues even in the BBNJ, Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction. People call it something called common heritage of mankind. This common heritage of mankind is a newly developed principles post colonial era is concerned, particularly, but this is a product of Cold War to some extent. So, what happens, whatever they believe it is a common heritage of mankind, whatever they believe it should be private right. Say example, this dichotomy not only existing in the UNCLOS, this is also existing in the space law, space treaties and outer space mechanism is also concerned, because they believe it should be done only for the promotion of humanity. There shall be no military usage is permitted, no commercial usage shall be permitted, nobody shall claim sovereignty beyond national jurisdiction in the ocean as well as in the outer space. This is what particularly people calls it as a common heritage of mankind. On the other hand, today though people do not call it sovereign strictly, but they claim other rights such as intellectual property rights. Please, one should understand whether the ocean mining or biodiversity mining in the ocean or space mining, it is very, very costlier. You need very high capital intensive technology. It is very high tech intended industry, and high capital requirements are also there. Therefore, the developing countries and LDCs are totally do not have access at all. So, this creates a huge disparity between the developed countries and the developing countries and the LDCs. Now, the beauty of the law of sea mechanism is that it recognizes landlocked countries' rights, archipelago countries' rights, all these things, small island states, all these things. But for them, you need to pay some benefits because you are using in no man's territory or territory which is common for all of us. So, whenever you are using the benefits in the utilizing certain resources in the common pool, certain share has to reach out the other persons who are deprived of all these resources. You can see such a provision even in Article 39B of our constitution, which says that material resources shall be at the hands of the state so as to subserve the community interest. This is the terminology what we call it in the Constitution of India. Such a mechanism has been worked out. Whether it is in progress, yes, we have certain success in the CBD as well as ITPGR, though different mechanism has been done, but slow and steady progress is done. But whether it is on the expected line, the answer is no. We have several funds in the environmental system. There is something called loss and damage fund. One more fund also very recently they have created for incentivizing non-usage of fossil fuel and to switch over clean fuel such as renewable energy so as to achieve the Kyoto Protocol targets or Paris target people call it. So, these sort of mechanisms are already existing. So, such a similar mechanism is created under the BBNJ so as to address this mining, bioprospecting, biomining issues, utilization of genetic resources and fair and sharing of equitable benefits. Along with that, it also uses the polluter pay principle, right, precautionary principle. All these principles are also given treaty recognition. So, once it was a customary principle of law, today it has become a treaty based principle of law. So, all these things are done. Whether it is working in the ground level, one has to see and wait because this is a very newly created treaty. In the general agreements like TRIPS and all, you will see the reference will be made to the Paris Convention on Industrial Property, Bern Convention on Copyright Works, all these things. They should have referred because this is the pari materia and this is existing law relating to the preservation and conservation of biodiversity and fair and accessible sharing of benefits. All these things are governed already. They have verbatically copied all the terms such as biodiversity, genetic resources, biotechnology, marine technology, database, even data protection concept has been addressed, digital sequencing has been addressed, ocean acidification has been addressed, climate change has been addressed. In this way, certainly it is a great improvement over the CBD, but lessons can be learned CBD directly, but that has not been specifically acknowledged in this particular treaty is concerned. But when interpretation is done, I think ICJ or the appropriate body at last will take into consideration of these general principles of international, at least the principles relating to international environmental law based on access and benefit sharing is concerned. Coming back to India, India follows specific adoption theory. We have a mandate under Article 253 to bring the convention into force. We have to bring a specific act by the parliament. So, accordingly, the Biodiversity Act has been recently amended. This includes certain things. Say example, in the territory, it includes the airspace, territorial sea, contiguous zone, continental shelf, all these things. You may ask whether these things are addressed in the constitution. Yes, it is addressed in the constitution. Somewhere else between Article 297, 298, it talks about territorial, contiguous zone, continental shelf, all these things. So, we have such a constitution, includes even there is no owner found property goes to the government. However, we believe something is better than nothing. We hope good sense will prevail over sooner rather than later, so that we really achieve inclusive growth, sustainable development and bio happiness by preventing bio privacy. Thank you all.